Hey everyone, Michael Pickens here, host of the Libertarian Leadership weekday live stream where I interview libertarian candidates and activists, and in this case, elected libertarians from all around the country who are doing some amazing things to advance the cause of liberty. Today we have Nathan Madden, who is the second vice chair of the Libertarian Party of Arizona. He's also an elected libertarian in the Buckeye Union High School District in Arizona. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pickens.
Good afternoon. So let me ask you, why did you first decide to get involved in politics, run for office, be a libertarian activist?
Yeah, so I actually got started getting involved in politics after a pretty uh, concerning interaction with local police during the initial 2 weeks of the COVID lockdowns. Arizona was going through curfews, that sort of thing. So one night I was working the night shift going between job sites, and I got pulled over twice. The first interaction was actually fairly cordial with state troopers. They just asked me, "Why you out?" It's all, that's all good. Um, the issue came with the second stop, and Phoenix PD had actually come to my vehicle with their weapon already drawn without any provocation. So that kind of signaled to me, hey, this is a problem, and I started
For a
getting involved.
curfew?
What's that?
For a curfew.
For a
They
curfew,
came to enforce the curfew with their hand on their weapon.
right? Now, already drawn, already pointed, and
Oh,
yeah, no, it's straight up. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, this is unacceptable. So that kind of launched me into the political arena in the first place. How that evolved is a whole other story, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
absolutely. Okay, so one thing that I found interviewing, hundreds of candidates and training candidates around the country is that the reason why people get involved is that they've been aggressed upon or they know someone who has been aggressed upon by government in a way where they never hurt anyone. They never did anything to infringe on anyone else's rights, but their rights were infringed upon by the government. So it sounds like that's your situation.
100%.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you do as, a Buckeye Union High School District board member.
Sure. So it's not exactly as glamorous as congressman, but yeah, no, we specifically school districts are interesting because as the board, you are essentially the legislative, judicial, and executive branch of the district. Despite the fact that you have like a superintendent that actually executes on things, but they still have to come to you for pretty much every major decision, especially if it includes finances. So uh, we set district policy, which is a huge thing because we can affect local curriculum and make sure that more freedom oriented education is being taught rather than communist nonsense, which is honestly what a lot of people, including myself, grew up with in public school. So it's a major thing being able to affect that in a counterculture way. Um, but yeah, no, we're also, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes back to the well being of the students and the rights of the parents. So that's my main focus on the board is just making sure that students are productive and parents are involved.
Can you dictate any type of curriculum? Does the board do that, or is that set from like the Arizona Department of Education or the Federal Department of Education?
So there are some limitations, specifically in the hard academics. So English, math, sciences, those types of things. There are hard requirements that
Yeah.
are passed down from on high. In terms of the federal intervention in things, it's less direct than the state. But I mean, everything comes back to money, right? And so the federal government, they just won't fund you if you don't do certain things. And so my district, we actually survived pretty well without federal funding for the most part. So we have a lot more latitude on what we can do. Um, but there are specific other things. We categorize them as career and technical education, CTE, which has been a major boon for all the students in our district, where people think of basic things like shop class that aren't even available to students anymore. Well, we have things that are far, far more impactful than shop class. I mean, we have students that are learning industry level certifications before they even graduate. So they don't even need to go to a trade school. They can if they want to, but
Sure.
Their higher education is already being granted to them.
Yeah, that's amazing, because one thing that I push is school choice, and I say if a voucher system was implemented here in Washington State, there would be all kinds of new schools popping up where if a student wants to learn plumbing or electrical work, or they want to become a mechanic or whatever it is, like they're able to go into those fields at 14 years old and spend the next 4 years learning the skills necessary that would follow their passions. Whereas right now, all the school is teaching, at least here in Washington State, obviously you're doing something different there, is that here in Washington State, it's just college. And that's it.
Yeah.
Giving them the basics.
Pushing them to college, making sure that they go into debt that they can never get out of. That's the whole. I mean, it's people talk about the school to prison pipeline. Well, really, it's the school to debt slave pipeline, and that's something that we've actually combated as well. One of the requirements to graduate in our district is to go through a program called Future Ready. It attacks various aspects of the problems in schooling. One of those being financial literacy and how to manage credit and these types of things. You read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a classic book for anybody who knows. But it's true. It's absolutely true. How it presents things, and we make sure that students have at least a basic understanding of credit and money and finances.
That's awesome. That is really cool that you guys are doing this. And so let me ask you this, right? So one thing I would do if I was king of the school district, right? If I was in charge of everything, is teach kids, logic and how to, is that something that you guys are doing also? Is that like a part of it?
One of my so that's kind of wrapped into Future Ready as well. But
okay.
We actually did bring back general logic classes as well. That was about a year and a half after I was elected. I was able to squeeze that in. Another one that is major is and this is also being expanded this year is so it's sort of a preliminary to law, which kind of teaches you your rights and how government interacts with the citizenry and that sort of thing, and not just the watered down stuff that we talk about. Oh, you have a Bill of Rights. Well, talking about the realities of how the system really works nowadays.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. You said something, you were able to squeeze that in, right? The logic and some of these things. How did you do that? How did you squeeze it in?
So here's my secret, right?
Yeah.
Don't be. We're not FCC regulated. Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say we're not FCC regulated, right? No.
No, we are not.
Okay. Yeah. Don't be an asshole. Present your ideas. Give people time to consider them. Really, the only people that you need to play hardball with, don't play hardball with your other board members. It's not going to work. It's going to polarize, and they're the ones with the actual votes. The ones you have to be, yeah, the ones you actually have to play hardball with are your administrative staff, because they're going to be resistant to you no matter what. They have a vested interest in the status quo and they hate change. Well, ultimately, their voice doesn't matter at the end of the day because they don't hold the vote.
They work for you.
They work for
the
you.
board. They should
And
work for the citizenry, but we live in an oligarchy with extra steps, so they
right,
work for the board.
correct.
Now,
Now
go ahead.
well, and ideally the board works for the citizenry. That doesn't always work out correctly either, but that comes down to a multi-factor issue. One of which is the citizenry just doesn't show up to meetings.
Yep.
So it, like, if you want to get your voice heard, best way you can do it, politely, respectfully, show up, speak your 2 or 3 minutes, say, hey, I want to address this. Understand that the board can't address it in that meeting, but you leave that option for a whole nother month to go by, and within that month, there are conversations happening in the district about what you brought up.
Awesome. Yeah, so there's over 200 people watching this live. If any of you watching have questions for Nathan, put them in here. This is actually a really good conversation because we haven't had an elected school board member that is actually making a positive difference in their local school board. I mean, this is a big deal. You know, adding classes with logic and, you know, real life skills that, you know, kids that aren't going to be going to college can benefit from. Myself, you know, when I went through government education, I graduated high school, I got into construction. I didn't learn anything about construction in high school. You know, nothing that I needed, I learned there, right? I took Algebra 1 3 years in a row because I asked them, like, where am I gonna use this later in life? Oh, if you're gonna be a chemist or an engineer. And I was like, nope, not doing that. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What would you say to encourage someone that is considering running for a position like this?
Well, one, get involved, right? Get to know your district, get to know your jurisdiction. This is going to sound very bureaucratic, but file the paperwork, right? That making sure all the paperwork is in order is actually the first step to anything in government. It's unfortunate as most people kind of shuffle that to the side, but it is the most important first step. When you actually get on the board, like I said before, don't be an asshole. Bring things up slowly, steadily. Use persuasive argument, and just try and work what you can, and don't die on every hill. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, so when you say don't die on every hill, you mean like if there's a vote that you're against, don't necessarily be angry about it, right?
Don't be angry about it, and understand the power of abstaining, right? Because you can signal dissatisfaction without directly voting against, and that does actually change the dynamic on the board. And you know, there's some things that you can just straight out be against, right? You want to be principled, absolutely be principled. Don't die on every hill. Not all hills are worth dying for.
Yeah, so basically pick your battles, right?
Right.
Kind of like the book How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's another good book.
Yeah. There's another one. There's like a sequel to that written by Bob Berg, and it's called Turning Adversaries into Allies. Another good one.
Yeah.
But the thing is, everything that we're, you know, promoting and talking about, this is all common sense stuff. Like the average person agrees with it. When I talk about the education system and how it can be improved, all of my neighbors, the people that I talk with in the community, they all agree, you know, we should be focusing on the basics. We should be helping kids, you know, plan their future in whatever direction they want, not just going to college. And
Right.
having these options gives kids the ability to go after things that they're actually interested in. And, you know, I have our vice chair here in Washington State, like her daughter is going to cosmetology school while she is going to high school, right?
Yes.
And she is having to juggle both of those things.
Hmm.
Her full day of school in high school is not helping her with her career. Like, she wants to be a cosmetologist, she wants to cut hair and dye hair and do all that. There's nothing that she's learning in school that is going to benefit her for the rest of her life. And that's the struggle, because, you know, we talk about this and it's like, well, her daughter is, you know, not doing the best in regular government school, but it has no, you know, bearing in her future on what she's going after in real life. So it's like, should you punish her for that? Probably not. Because, you know, it doesn't benefit her.
Right. Now, there are unfortunate realities when it comes to public education. Is you do have to get a gen ed degree, right? It's
Sure.
and degree meaning like a certificate of graduation, that sort of thing. Um, there are requirements of, it's an archaic system because we all know that the public school system was set up to follow the Prussian military model,
Yeah.
and it's not conducive to creating critical thinkers. So you have to explore sort of these out of the box ideas in order to actually make it a productive system for the students. And that's where things like career and technical education come in. These other, like, I don't want to say extracurricular because they are curricular in our system, but these auxiliary, I'll just say, classes that actually benefit people, right? It's by the way, I want to bring this up too. My district, you were talking about school choice earlier. My district, our price per student is around $6,000. And
Holy cow.
right. And the state average is about 14,000. So
we're at 23,000 here in Washington.
That is absurd. That is
Yes.
absolutely absurd to me. Because
Nathan, we're going to have lots of conversations in the future. Like,
well, you have to find efficiencies, right? Value is created where efficiency is found. So you take your price and you take your output, and then you just try and match that as close as possible. That's if you have a good CFO in the district, that's a huge benefit. We have one that has been there for quite a while, and he's been an absolute benefit to the district. Very, very fiscally conservative guy, and he's able to find deals, right? That's a huge thing. So, you have your classroom costs, your plant management costs, and then your administrative costs in the district. Those are your three main buckets. You have some miscellaneous stuff on the side. But if you can get your plant management down, then that frees up more for the students in the actual classroom.
Gotcha. So we got a question from Joe Hanush. Do the sponsorships around recreational sports fields raise money?
So they do. What I will say though is, and I don't know if this is unique to our my state and how we do things, but usually any of the extracurricular activities, including sports, they generate their own funds and they fund themselves. They don't fund anything else in the district. So general fund dollars usually either come from local property taxes, bonds, which the citizenry has to vote on, or funding from the state government, which they've taxed in other ways.
Awesome. For those of you just hopping on, we're up to about 300 live listeners. Make sure you go back to the beginning of this episode and watch from the start because you missed a bunch of good stuff. Nathan, So you're running for re-election for this position, correct? Is that this year?
That's this year. I have done some good campaigning. Pretty confident that I'm going to get back in. Again, I haven't exactly been an asshole on the board, so that's been huge. It is a competitive race. I think there's 4, maybe 5 other candidates right now.
For just your position?
It's 2 seats, so you can
Okay.
cut that in half, and then the actual competition is between three people.
Okay.
So it'll come down to the best man will win. I consider myself the best man, otherwise I wouldn't be running again. But these past 4 years, I've been the price per student has been fairly consistent. We were able to lower taxes for 2 years on the property tax side, and the other 2 years that we weren't able to lower it, it's remained fairly neutral. I think maybe it went up like 2 cents or something like that. But we were also able to refinance outstanding bond debt, which just massively collapsed the interest rate and the total interest payments on the back end. So still saving money either way.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, this is great. I'm really glad that you came on the show, because we can use this in other school board races across the country and as an example. And I hope you'll be willing to coach other candidates through this process.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest first step is to file the paperwork and then start running, right? Your general time commitment for a school board after you're elected is like 16 hours a month, right?
Okay.
That's not a whole lot. That's one main meeting, and then trying to get admin to do stuff in between them, and the occasional special meeting here or there when something comes up.
Yeah, something serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some other things that you are trying to advance in this position, or anything else that you'd like to share? We have about 7 minutes left, so.
Sure. Well, so my biggest thing since I got on the board was just ensuring parental involvement, right? So that this is a technical legal term. I'm not sure if many people are familiar with, but in loco parentis, have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, so the general theory of it is when a parent or guardian is not in control of their ward, their child, the state becomes the de facto ward or de facto guardian of the child, and all decision-making authority is vested in the state. I hate that idea from its face, just because the state is a terrible decision maker, and it's a terrible arbiter in most anything, let alone child well-being. So I have continuously tried to bridge the gap where parents just need to be more involved in the decisions of their children's education. And so getting parental involvement up in the district is always going to be a priority of mine. The other is just continuous transparency and fighting against the implementation of these AI security systems. That's been a whole other fight over this past year. Thankfully, I was able to win the first battle.
Explain that for all of us, including me, that has no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, so the advancement of security tech has been the implementation of AI and the usage of facial recognition, this sort of thing. Now, a few of us may have heard that this was something that ethereally exists in China and is being used for social credit score systems and all that stuff, right? Well, guess what? It's at your doorstep now, and it's in your schools. And if you don't have laws on the books or policies on the books that stop the rampant use of it, believe me, your district administrators are going to be using it. It's going to be misfiring. It's going to be misidentifying students, and it's going to be causing problems. And the reason why I know that is because it started to in my district without my knowledge until it was brought up to me. And almost immediately, um, I was able to get that turned around because I was able to lean on state law, uh, which had a protection against usage of biometric information. Thankfully, that was already in place. Otherwise, that fight would have been a lot harder. But that's still just the first step. I have been trying to implement some protection policies for student privacy and staff privacy while these things are in use. Thankfully, like I said, that first battle's already been won.
That's awesome. Yeah, I had no idea. So they're using facial recognition technology in the schools.
Yep.
Just to keep track of the students, to make sure who's there, who's not there, where they are at all times.
Yep. They set up what are called zones in the camera view cones, and specifically on like known troublesome areas, right? Where, we've had graffiti or we've had students smoking over here, those types of things.
Yeah.
And they'll have it pick up and record, or they were, now they're not. They were having it pick up and record all the students' faces and like adding them into lists of like, hey, these people frequent this area.
Yeah.
And they were picking up like behavioral patterns too, where it's like, oh, this student takes this route throughout the school campus, or those types of things.
Yeah.
And I don't need to tell you how invasive that really is, and especially when the parents just don't know that it's happening. I'm just glad that we were able to get a lot of those features turned off.
Yeah, I would have been screwed in high school if they had that back then.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. I have another comment from Joe Hanush. If something like COVID happens again, would you vote to make masking mandatory?
No. Here's the thing: you attend the district on a volunteer basis, right? You enroll, you come to learn. Student safety is important, but it keeps. I keep going back to the fact that it needs to be the parent that makes the decision. Right. So if you send your kid to a school with a mask and you tell them, hey, wear the mask, that's on the parent. It should not be on the district. The district needs to be focused on educating and specifically how to think, not what to think. That's my position.
That's great. Yeah, that is fantastic. I appreciate everything that you're doing. This was a great conversation. I'm glad that you came on the show, and I look forward to future conversations. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we close it out?
Just get involved. Like if you're even thinking about it, just do it. There are a number of these smaller races, whether it's school board or local city council, or there's a bunch of small boards on counties and that sort of thing. Find them, file for them, win them, because every single one of these jurisdictions has taxing authority. And if nothing else, you can lower taxes.
Yeah, well, it seems like you're bringing a common sense logical approach to this position. And there are so many school boards across the country that does not have a Nathan Madden, someone like you who are bringing these ideas, right? Do you have other people on your school board that are also, your friend, that are also pushing these things, or were you the main guy that made this happen?
So I was the main guy in the first year.
Yep.
Every 2 years, about half the board gets cycled out.
Yep.
And another guy named Brandon Shelton. He's a local meat packer. He came on and pretty much has been saying the same thing that I've been saying. Right? He's a little more conservative to my libertarianism,
Sure.
but we we tend to agree on the basics because, like you said, it's common sense. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be controversial. A lot of these things, it's we want to make sure that the impact that the government has on the community is as minimal as possible, because as we all know, when government interferes in things, things tend to get messed up.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. Well, Nathan, hey, thank you so much for your time. How do people find you if they want to connect?
yeah, so I am the second vice chairman of the Arizona Libertarian Party. You can contact me to VC at azlp .org. That's my organizational email. Otherwise, my personal Twitter, Nathan Madden 98, and Nathan Madden on Facebook. So
Awesome. Nathan, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I appreciate everything you're doing to advance the cause of liberty.
I do what I can.